Welcome, everyone, to the How to Get the Most Out of College podcast. There's a lot of talk about where to go to college, but not nearly enough about how to go to college. And it's the everyday decisions that drive your success. I'm your host, Elliot Felix. I've been a consultant to more than 100 colleges and universities, helping them improve their student experience. And I'm the author of How to Get the Most Out of College, where I take what I've learned about how college works and make it work for you. People spend a lot of time thinking about where to go to college, but there's also how you go to college. There's a what to college in terms of your major. And most importantly, there's a why are you going to college? For some, it's identity. Others, it's part of a community. It's, learning skills, learning about a topic, getting that credential, leading to a career. It's a mix of these, but it's a complicated process. And so I'm so excited to have Michelle McAnaney, the founder of The College Spy, to walk us through this process of how students and families can better understand the why behind college so that they can find a better where. Welcome, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
How did you get started helping folks think about college?
Been doing it a long time. My background is high school guidance or high school counseling. We don't say guidance anymore, but I'm from the land of when you did. I used to work in a high school doing school counseling, and I switched over in 2016 to be an independent educational consultant, helping students with the college admissions process solely, which has been really a fantastic fit for me. I really like diving into this one topic and being an expert in it over when I was a school counselor. That job's a mile wide and an inch deep. There's so much involved. And so now I've gotten a chance to really expertise myself around college admissions and really stay in that lane, it's exciting.
That's awesome. And what's The College Spy?
So I'm the founder of The College Spy, and I spy on colleges and tell people all about them. So we spend a lot of time on the road visiting colleges and learning about them and really knowing them well so that I can match up the right college with the student, depending on who they are, what they want, what they care about, and even why they're going to college.
And so how do you dig into this topic of why? How do you work with students to get at that complex question? I would imagine it's hard at any age, but, particularly if you're applying to college.
Well, I bring it up all the time, and it's probably something that will come up in our second meeting. So it's from the very beginning, talking to the student about why do they want to go to college? And I specifically ask them this and mention to them that other people in their lives have reasons why they should go to college. Usually parents, but sometimes teachers and school counselors as well will talk to students about that and really talking to kids about why do you want to go? And why do your parents want you to go? And are those things aligned, or is your reason for going a little bit different from theirs, even though most students will recognize that their parents have fantastic reasons for them to go to college? So I talk about it right from the get-go and throughout my time working with students. If I'm lucky, I can get students as young as grade 9 and 10, although a lot of parents will hire an educational consultant starting in grades 11 and even into the beginning of senior year. But when I get them young, it's just great because their reasons for why they want to go to college in grade 9 and 10, they're often different than how they'll answer that question in grades 11 and 12. They grow and change. It's a developmental process. And this is one of the things that's connected with that.
What's your favorite question for getting at the why?
Simply, why do you want to go to college? Why are we doing this?
Just direct, just like
direct.
right there.
Oh, yeah. I'm always direct. But also to talk to them sometimes about what are the reasons a person could possibly even consider? Because there are some students that will be like, what do you mean? I have to go to college. They've never really thought about it. And so sometimes the conversation will morph into, sometimes students will answer this question because they really want to learn. They want to continue their education. Other students are very much career focused. And I spoke to a student actually just yesterday. She's a sophomore, very bright, very engaged in the admissions process at a younger age, it's in 10th grade, because sometimes in 10th grade, they're not quite ready to think about it. And she answered the question like this. She said, I want to make friends and have a great social circle. And I really want to continue my learning. That was what was important to her in this moment. And then the way that my process is really to dive into that a little bit more and just ask them more questions about why the social circle is important. And do they hear stories from their parents about their social circles from high school? Or did their parents take them to alumni events? I have a student who she's at Scripps and her mom went to Scripps. and she's been to alumni events. So she's seen that social circle firsthand and what it can mean for your life later on. So I try to get at with the kids, why do you want to go to college? But also, where's that coming from? How did you learn about it? Partly because I want to know, and partly because I want them to think about it, because it'll make a difference in their college search and in often their application process.
You mentioned that the way that students might answer that question could change over time from, ninth and 10th to 11th and 12th, and could get influenced by friends and family and experiences. What are some of those changes and what are some of those influences that you've seen?
Oftentimes when they're younger, they will either not have a good answer to that question or parrot what their parents have said. So they'll say things like, well, I need to go to a good college so I can get a good job. Or I think it would be fun to go to college. Or they'll kind of look at me like, what else would I do if I didn't go to college? Because for some students, it's just a given that they're going to go and they've bought into that since they were very young and learning to read. And over time, as students work with me and learn what colleges have to offer them and what they can get out of the experience, and they get more information and make some decisions around what they're interested in and possibly what they want to study, they might change the way they're talking about this and say, well, I really want to go to this type of college because I'm going to get this out of it. I'll give you an example. Students who are interested in STEM will often talk about engineering. And when they learn about the fact that some colleges are really strong in co-op programs, they might start saying, well, I want to go so that I can get a specific experience and really narrow down what it is that I want to study and what type of industry I want to work in. So once they know more about colleges, they're able to talk more about why they actually want to go.
So that's interesting. It's kind of a back and forth. You have some ideas about why, and then as you learn more about the what and the how of college, that might tell you a little bit more about the why. That's really interesting.
The other thing that will happen to students in working with me and as we're talking is that they get permission to have new reasons why they wanted to go to college. Not that their parents and teachers aren't giving them permission. They're just not thinking about it this way. They're just talking about the reasons that they want their child to go to college, which are great reasons. But as I'm talking to students and letting them know that a student that is, let's say, really career oriented, and they're saying, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a nurse. That's why I want to be a nurse. My mom's a nurse or a doctor or something like that. And they have a very specific reason for going. Well, colleges often have general education requirements, core curriculum, core requirements that you have to take. And I talk to students about, well, maybe another reason why you want to go to college is that you want to explore these other subjects as well and take these core requirements because you want to become a smart, educated person and you're interested in learning, or you want to improve your writing skills. They've just never thought of it that way. And so for some students, they'll say, yeah, actually, I do want to learn. That's why I'm there as well, not just to get the credential. And other students will think about that and say, that's actually less important to me. I'm really focused in on this credential. Let's look for a college with less core requirements or that they have a lot of flexibility in those requirements so that they can tailor it to really meet their interests. So as they're exploring the why, they're looking into which school.
And do you ever talk to students about ways to test some of these things out? One of the tips in my book is find ways to sample college, like go to an event, maybe even do a summer study, take a class. There's a range of things, obviously tour the campus, but what can you do when you have some sense of the why? What can you do to test out the where?
All of the things that you just mentioned are perfect. Oftentimes I'm having that conversation. It's almost like it's organic a little bit, as opposed to deliberately saying, let's go test this out, the why. More I'm telling them, let's go look at the colleges. And when they come back from their tour and we're debriefing and I'm finding out from them, what did you love? What didn't you like? So we can retweak the list to meet more of their criteria as they're defining their criteria. It'll come up again in the sense of, oh, you saw this? Wow, you didn't know that you'd be excited about that. And then it goes back to that, why are you going? Because you can participate in X, Y, and Z. So they're really, as they're learning about colleges and defining their criteria for their college search, they are strengthening their why and often expanding it and sometimes narrowing it. That could happen too. And from my point of view, It doesn't matter which it is, expanding it, narrowing it. I want them to think about it.
And do you ever like have students look at different types of schools in order to get at it? My own experience of choosing a grad school, I was not really sure what I was looking for. And I know it's a little bit different. I've been working for 5 years in between, but I looked at one school that was highly technical. I looked at another one that was like highly conceptual. I looked at another one that was like very connected to industry and very applied. And I figured, let me go to the best of these different flavors and check them out. And then like maybe that will tell me something. Was there some of that going on?
Yes, all the time. I really want students to spend time on campuses or doing virtual events. Sometimes it's difficult to get them to go to campus depending on the family, their this level of busyness and priorities. But if I have my druthers, I have them go to the campuses. And I want them to see campuses that are different from one another. So I want them to explore a really large campus, one in a city, one that's rural, and compare that. Because students and parents have preconceived notions about what the college experience should be based on their own experiences, sometimes as parent where they went to college, or for students, sometimes based on colleges that they're familiar with, either because they watch sports or the college is near their home. But I very much want students to see all different kinds of campuses so that they can really say, this is what my preference is because I've seen it, I've experienced it. I'll give you an example of one that just happened. So I have a student who lives in Austin and her dad went to the University of Michigan, and people go to the University of Michigan, just love the University of Michigan, go blue. And the student has been to football games and she's visited the campus. She's got the gear, right? And as I'm getting to know her, I kind of can tell that a smaller university would be a better fit for her academically. Socially, she'd do well across the board. But of course, she believes socially she'd do great at the University of Michigan. Plus, she lives in Austin, so she has UT right there, that big rah-rah type school. Anyway, she's on her college tour now. She's awesome. She's giving me the play-by-play with texts and pictures. It's so exciting. It's like I'm joining her. But she went to High Point University, and they call themselves the premier life skills university, right? Lots of talk at High Point about life skills. And she texted me and said, I like what they're talking about life skills. She never thought that's what was one of her whys. And I don't know that High Point is perfect for her. If you know anything about it, it's a bit controversial. People have feelings about High Point. I visited it and I thought this is really cool for a certain type of a student that it's a good fit for. But I often feel that way when I visit colleges, that it's there for a certain type of student. Colleges are different from one another. Anyway, so it's exciting to see her figuring out her why because she's been to campus and different types of campuses. Today she's going to Clemson. So that's different from
Ah,
hybrid, right?
yeah.
So, and I said to her, great, I'm really looking forward to hearing how Clemson is different from a High Point. What do you see? And then debriefing and talking to her about how is one school better fit for you than another? And it might be that neither is good for her and we're looking for something just different or in the middle. It's exciting.
Yeah, the main thing I'm taking away from this is how organic a process it is, where you think a little bit about the why, then you go to some different wheres, and that tells you more about the why, and you kind of go back and forth and you kind of hone in on some options. It's really interesting. You mentioned debriefing. What are some ways that people can be really thoughtful during this organic process to be sure they're learning from the experience about the where and the why together?
Well, the college tour helps a lot. And conversations about the college tours helps a lot. So if a student doesn't have an independent educational consultant guiding them through that process, it could be helpful to talk to all different kinds of people on purpose. So talk with your parents about what do they see and why they think that one college might be better for you than another, as well as what you'll get out of it, the why you're going if you went to this school compared to that school. But then go check in with your school counselor, make an appointment with them and say, hey, I want to talk to you about the schools that I went to and bat around ideas. Or if you have access to talking to an alum, that would be really good. And so the more conversations a student can have with different people could be very helpful. It's interesting. A lot of students who don't have those conversations and they're just getting through the college process the best they can, they do find their way. But I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes up along the way because they lack confidence that they're doing this correctly and they aren't really being thoughtful about Why do I want to go? What type of school do I want to go to? How do I put that all together?
That makes a lot of sense. For our final question, you just mentioned getting the most out of it. And of course, that's something near and dear to my heart. Wrote a whole book about that. And that makes me think, the why you go is connected to certain outcomes, right? So if you're career oriented, what kinds of careers that folks go into? What's the placement rate? Do you get into that talking about outcomes, about where you'll be 4 years from now if you go to X, Y, or Z college or university?
I do, especially when a student is ready to talk. I work with all kinds of students. There isn't a school in this country that I would say, nah, except maybe the for-profit ones. I stay away from those. So, some students are ready to talk about those things and others aren't. And I will broach it and try to introduce it. But I have a lot of students, even in 11th grade, who are saying, why are we talking about this now? This is next year. So to bring up where you're going to graduate and what are you going to do then? Sometimes, what might happen for some students is they shut down a little bit and they disengage because it's uncomfortable. But I definitely tried to do that. One of the things that I recommend to students and parents is they talk a lot about return on investment, right? What is the return on investment if my student spends time at this college and we spend a ton of money to send them there? And my suggestion for families is to define the return broadly. Don't keep it super narrow for just getting a job, making money, being able to support yourself, but to look at all the other things that your student is going to get out of the experience in terms of making lifelong friends, really learning to be independent, to be a lifelong learner and an educated person. These are all fantastic reasons to go to college. And for a lot of families, that return is worth the investment.
What a great way to end, Michelle. Thank you so much for your advice and insights on how why you go to college relates to and can be tested by where you go to college. This is really going to help our listeners think about these important questions and learn as they're touring campuses and applying. And even once they get there, because if they have this why, they can also make the most of their time once they're on campus. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And check out elliottfelix.com for all the episodes and the articles I've written, talks I've given, and more information about the book.